Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. This is the Jake Ellenbogen channel. It has been a minute. I ran into some technical difficulties in the form of two videos I spent over 4 hours on putting together for you guys and kind of lost everything. So shut me down a little bit, but I'm back. I'm here. I have a lot to talk about, but we'll start off. It's going to be a quick hitter video on this one. It's a topic that's on my mind. It's a topic that's kind of bugging me. It's the topic of the postponement of the Pittsburgh Steelers game taking on the Baltimore Ravens, whereas the Denver Broncos were kind of left out in the cold without a quarterback to play up against the number one team in the NFC and the New Orleans Saints. So we'll get into this. It's a quick hitter. I gotta give my thoughts. I am a little annoyed. I think this could have been handled a lot better than it was. Just to kind of break this down for you, Thursday night last week. Thursday night is kind of a tradition now. They added Thursday Night Football on Thanksgiving over the last few years, and pretty much the Steelers have played on that Thursday Night Football slot for a little bit now. They were playing the Ravens. It was a great game to set up. I thought you had a pretty underrated rivalry there. Ben Roethlisberger versus Lamar Jackson, but hold on a sec. Lamar Jackson tested positive for COVID-19, as well as a plethora of other players, personnel, coaches, etc. And that led the game to being postponed until, I believe it was 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. It was going to be on NBC. So they were going to stick to the NBC time slot, and it was just going to move over to Sunday. Well, Sunday comes along, and right before then, they basically pushed it back to Tuesday. So, Lamar Jackson's unable to play. A bunch of other guys are unable to play. They push it back to Tuesday. And now I'm recording this on a Monday night. And they have now announced that they are pushing this game back to Wednesday night, which I don't believe we've had Wednesday Night Football before. For a week like this, not to end a week, maybe to start off a week. But I have issues with this. I have issues for the simple reason that the Broncos were forced to play Kendall Hinton, who is a college quarterback at Wake Forest, and they were forced to play Kendall Hinton, and who is a wide receiver. Against a tough New Orleans Saints team in a game where, look, the rest of the year, Vic Fangio's squad is going to have to pretty much win out because of the fact that these quarterbacks, one quarterback tested positive, I believe it was Brett Ripien. And because, the tracing, the COVID tracing, a high-risk target in Drew Lock, their starting quarterback, was one of them, and as well as Jeff Driscoll. And so all three of them had to sit out. Now, I get that. I have understanding of that. I get it. It's a weird year, it's unprecedented. But here's the kicker. You're going to blame this on the Broncos players for not wearing a mask when Ben Albright came out and said that not only was that untrue, that idea that they weren't wearing masks, but keep this in mind, folks. The thing that the NFL is trying to say is that they pushed back the Ravens game because they didn't have COVID-19 under control, but the Broncos facility had it under control. So what you're telling me is that the Broncos were penalized for having COVID-19 under control, and they were forced to play without their starting quarterback, without their second string and their third string quarterback, because they had COVID-19 under control. And the Ravens didn't have COVID-19 under control, and they were in a severe disadvantage against the Steelers. The Steelers keep getting everything moved, and it keeps going against everything their way. But they continue to win, and this is no different. the Ravens were going to be without Lamar Jackson. They were going to be without pretty much their entire running back group, a myriad of players on the defense. And because the Ravens couldn't control COVID the way the Broncos were, they were rewarded with not just one move to Sunday, not just two moves to moving it over to Tuesday. They were rewarded with a third move to Wednesday, which will now make most of those running backs in that group available for the Wednesday night football game. And now the Steelers, who have followed COVID protocol, who've had one or two cases tops, they have not had many cases, they are now penalized because they were of the impression they were going to play Thursday, then Sunday, and then Tuesday, and now they're going to be playing on Wednesday. So you tell me how that's fair. The Broncos got penalized for having COVID under control. The Steelers continue to get penalized for other teams having outbreaks. And the Ravens got all this time to potentially get Lamar Jackson back, which they won't. He will be unable to play Wednesday, according to, I believe it was Ian Rappaport that said that. But you could see my issue. I think simply put, they botched this. Forget favoritism, because I do think ultimately they wanted a better product on the field in that rivalry game on primetime, and they didn't really care as much with Vic Fangio's Broncos, who are 4-6 at the time, going up against the New Orleans Saints. That wasn't on primetime. But this was not handled correctly. And the NFL definitely needs to be accountable for it, because the Broncos lost a game in which forfeiting would have been just as good of a result. 31-3. Are you kidding me? What kind of product is that? I mean, Taysom Hill didn't really do anything. He threw an interception, was stifled by Vic Fangio's defense like we all expected. The game's a lot different. If Drew Lock plays, I have to imagine the Broncos might even win that game. It has severe implications in the NFC. It has severe implications in the AFC for the Broncos moving forward. And ultimately, the NFL decided, we'll just blame it on the fact they weren't wearing masks as much as they should have. And credit to Vic Fangio for going along with it. Obviously he doesn't want to get fined. He doesn't want to lose picks. We've already seen draft picks being taken away due to lack of mask wearing. And I won't get into all that. But I really think they botched this. I think it's a bigger deal than it's being made out to be. And I do feel for Broncos fans, because the fact that Kendall Hinton had to go out there and perform and entertain the Broncos fan base, that just doesn't really seem fair to me. Whereas the Ravens, like I said, the Broncos were penalized for having it under control, and the Ravens were not. And simply to put, that's just not fair. So, I think if you're not going to move the Broncos game, then, and you also declined their waiver to have one of their former coaches who is one of their coaches who's a former quarterback in college, you declined their waiver to have him play in a dire situation, and you forced their hand to play a practice squad wide receiver. To me, these postponements are ridiculous. Then you just proved that. I mean, then why can't these teams play the same time and just have the players that, the same thing that the Broncos had? Drew Lock didn't have COVID, but the Broncos got penalized for it. Lamar Jackson had COVID, and the league in a nutshell decided, okay, let's give the Ravens some time to come back and get ready and be healthy. But the Broncos, we don't care. That's all I have for this quick hitter, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is just my thoughts. I understand everyone's opinions are a little different, especially when we're talking about such a sensitive topic, but I do have to say the Broncos were screwed. The Ravens weren't. I don't hate the Ravens. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, so you can consider me unbiased in this scenario. And at the end of the day, I feel like the only team that really got screwed, besides the Steelers, who have had this repeatedly now, not being able to play when they were scheduled to play, the Broncos. absolutely screwed, and this could be the nail in the coffin as far as trying to make a playoff berth in the seventh seed. I don't see it happening now. All right, well that's gonna do it. Stay tuned for my next video. I'm gonna be talking about Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, comparing the two since Rodgers has entered the league as a starting quarterback back in 2008. And I may or may not have the GOAT conversation. Stay tuned.